This week's Workout Wednesday is a video by request asking for tips on the coveted one-set workouts. Real quick before we jump in though, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below because I come out with these videos every week and that's the best way to ensure that you don't miss the latest episodes. The one-set workout is a fascinating thing and there's lots of examples of successful individuals who've used one-set workouts from Dorian Yates, Metzers, and all sorts of examples throughout bodybuilding history for building muscle, building strength, and it's also very convenient because it doesn't take up nearly as much time or energy as exhausting set after set volume workouts. And of course, this is something that some people may feel is more for them, some people feel it's not quite for them, but do experiment because everybody responds differently to different workout protocols. But if you want to get the most out of your single set workouts, I recommend these following tips. Tip number one, of course, is make sure you have a very thorough warm-up. The one set workout is kind of a little bit of a misnomer because that one set refers to one working set. That doesn't include things like your warm-up sets that gets you ramped up. The idea is that you get your mind and your body fully ready to rock and roll through a gradual warming up process of increasingly more difficult sets, more volume, and then when you're ready to go, bang, you hit that one set with everything you've got going to like battle kind of intensity. But if you just jump into it with, okay, here's my one set of the day, then it's like you're just getting warmed up by the time you're finished, or maybe even not halfway warmed up. So make sure that one set doesn't include warm-up sets. Another recommendation that I have is practice tricky moves on your off days. This is something very similar to my CC Plus calisthenics program. The free ebook is down below if you want to check that out. But I'm a very big believer in the fact that our ability to have a productive workout depends a lot on how proficient you are at the exercises that you're doing. Now, a lot of times when it came to examples of successful one-set workouts, you find a lot of these workouts revolved a lot around machine work because you can really push very hard and the skill adaptation to such training is relatively low. However, if you're doing free weight training or calisthenics training, there's a bit more of a skill element to these exercises. And as a result, if you're only doing one set, you may not be getting a lot of volume to practice and become proficient enough in the exercise to get as much out of the movement as possible. So having a little bit of practice, kind of a grease the groove method, gives you the ability to practice the exercise in a low-key format where you're not going to a very high level of fatigue. And what that does is it gets you much more prepared, so when you are doing that one set, you're not still trying to figure out all the little nuances and technical details. Everything's dialed in, so you can just rock as hard as you can during that set. Another reason why machines were very prevalent with one-set workouts was these are what I often like to call the fail-safe methods. When you're pushing one set, you're really having to exert yourself physically and mentally to a very, very high level. So I recommend a lot using exercises that even if your form breaks down to a degree, you're still relatively safe and comfortable. This is one of the big advantages to calisthenics, like with pull-ups. You can do pull-ups until you're barely able to hang on to the bar. It's still pretty safe. So those little alarm bells going off in the back of your mind saying, abort, abort, stop doing this, it's not there. So you can push yourself to a very high level. And speaking of comfort, that is also very key because pushing yourself to a very high level of performance requires, ironically enough, a good degree of comfort, mental and physical comfort. So make sure you're using exercises that you feel relatively comfortable with. Again, this comes from practicing the movement on a frequent basis and becoming more proficient with it, but also becoming more mental with pushing yourself to that high level. And this can take time to develop. It can take a little bit of practice to feel like where you would normally stop and think that's your failure point, you actually have 5 or 6 reps beyond that. So there you go. There are my tips for helping you get the most out of one set training if you feel like that's an avenue that you want to explore in. And above all, allow yourself some flexibility with how you apply this. Some people do one set training, working a body part once a week. Other people twice a week, 3 times a week. Be flexible in your approach to this and figure out what seems to work best for you. Questions down below. Be fit, live free.